hear about or obviously COVID related that are relevant related to funding. And so try to keep the topics interesting. And certainly this morning we have some very relevant speakers on topics that we know are going to be of interest to our folks in the business community. Just some ground rules about the meeting. If you have any questions as we're rolling with topics, please add them to the Q&A section. The section for the chat is more of a meeting function. So if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A so we're monitoring that. We can either roll it into the response from the speaker or go back to it if necessary. So that's it. We have the agenda that you'll see on the screen here. And Amy, you want to go over to slide number 2? There you go. So you can see here, we're going to try to hit on a couple of different areas of interest. Certainly if there's time, and we'll try to be respectful of everyone's time at the end, we would certainly open it up. Things that we'd like to do, last time we asked for feedback was January of 20, and obviously a lot has changed then, but certainly we'd like to hear from you in terms of topics of interest. So later on this week, we'll send out a short survey asking participants about what they'd like to see moving forward, meeting format. We've only done one in person. This is virtual. All of the topics have been pretty well attended, and so wanted to make sure that we're still hitting topics that are relevant for the audience. So we'll ask you to complete that later on this week. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. With that, we'll start with welcoming from our newly elected mayor, Kevin Ward. Mayor Ward, the floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I first of all want to thank you all for being here today and being business owners or business involved in business activity in the city. I think it's really important that we continue to foster better relationships, not only with our business community, but how that community intersects with our residents as well. We've had a tremendous year, tremendous in good ways and tremendous in bad ways over the past year and a half, really, if you think about it, with the uprise in COVID and then us beginning to take it seriously as a country, to the transition to how we combat and, for lack of a better word, eliminate it in our community. But not only that, social justice issues and things like that have happened over the past year. And I've been proud of how not only the city responded, but also our business community coming together and making sure that we're getting the best of the best things done here in the city. And that's what I will continue to strive for. Those of you who interacted with me as a council member know that I'm a business owner as well and understand the difficulties in navigating difficult times. So I look forward to building relationships with all of you. Feel free to call on me or email me, and we can work together and see how we can get the things done we want to work on. Thank you all very much and have a great meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Ward. So folks, our first speaker is Stacey King. Stacey is a community developer with Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation. We were fortunate enough to be introduced to Stacey a couple of months ago. She made us aware of the county's efforts to really consolidate a lot of information around transportation, employee transportation programming. I know it's something that we receive a fair amount of feedback from businesses about. And so she was fortunate enough to have some availability and gracious enough to spend that time with us. And so She's here to talk through some of that programming. And again, as we're rolling with this, if you have any questions for Stacey, drop them in the Q&A, and we'll she'll try to cover them as she talks, or we can roll back to them after she's done. So with that, thank you, Stacey. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Good morning. All right, let's pull up my screen here. And someone will let me know if you can't see it, right? Or hear me. So let's go. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much for making me part of the program today. I just started working for the county back in the fall, and I manage our RideSmart commuter programs. So I'm going to dump a ton of information on you very quickly, and then get to kind of the meat of what I want to talk about. Firstly, I just want to give a quick overview of the transportation arm of DPW&T, some of the functions, our major functions. So we operate the bus, 19 fixed route bus lines throughout the county, but we are dipping our toes also into microtransit and on-demand curb-to-curb service in geographically sort of more confined areas. And we operate the call-a-bus and call-a-cab paratransit services. We also manage 12 of the park and ride lots throughout the county, and we manage and oversee the Capital Bike Share program in Prince George's County. We have a dedicated bicycle and program coordinator, bicycle and pedestrian program coordinator, and we have implemented a Vision Zero strategy to eliminate roadway fatalities by 2040. Then we have the RideSmart program, which is what I do, and this is all about taking all of these options, distilling them down, and helping to inform your commuting decisions for individual commuters and employers across the county. So just a little bit of a deeper explanation. The RideSmart Commuter Solutions Program, our goal is to reduce drive-alone trips. There are lots of great reasons why we want to do that, but that's the main thing that we're after here. And our programs and services are available for anyone who lives, works, visits, or operates a business in Prince George's County. And really our success is achieved, couldn't happen without partnerships with employers and individual commuters and municipalities, and by developing robust programs with incentives, sharing knowledge and support to help build up programs, and by measuring outcomes, because you can't manage what you're not measuring. So I'm going to just very quickly breeze through some commuter facing tools that are out there. These are like really low hanging fruit things that I just want to put out there that exist for free. So I just want to start off to talk a little bit about some of the trip planning supports that actually we've developed through the county. There's tons of stuff out there and apps and Google and that sort of thing. But we actually have a PGC trip app, which gives real-time roadway conditions. And we've developed a transportation hub, which layers transportation options on top of major destinations like shopping centers and schools and things like that. So you can kind of really start to get an idea of what are all of the options depending on where you're going. Now I want to talk about some of the free services that are available to commuters. We promote and encourage people to use these services, but we don't actually administer them. They are administered through the Commuter Connections program, which is through Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. So a lot of what we promote actually ends up, sending people to their site to register. So the first one is Guaranteed Ride Home, which if you have employees who are not driving alone to work, they can enroll in this service, and up to 4 times per year, if they have an emergency at work and need to get home quickly, they can get a free ride home through this service. Another great one that Commuter Connections offers is free ride matching. So you can create a free profile and set your search criteria and even narrow it to just people within your organization. So there's some good options there for finding someone to drive with. There are also paid incentives and programs for people for commuting choices. So for example, there's this cool app called Incentrip, which will give you options on how you could get to your destination, and it assigns points based on the way you get there. So car trips earn fewer points than taking the bus, but that all accumulates and can be converted to cash and rewards down the line. There are some longer standing programs too that subsidize carpooling and van pooling. And then there are programs also that kind of reward the one-off situations, like if you just one time you carpool with somebody or you delay a trip because there's a lot of congestion in the area and you've gotten a nudge to do it. So these are just some things that, just already out there. I want to take a quick moment to talk about some things we're excited about. So we're putting Wi-Fi on the bus this year. We have a new real-time bus tracking app. We're expanding Capital Bike Share and expanding our bike and pedestrian network. We're growing our RideSmart commuter program, and we're supporting return to office strategies because we know a lot of people are kind of in that mindset now. And I just want to also quickly mention that we fully recognize that COVID-19 really has had a tremendous impact on every decision that people are making, including their commuting and travel choices. So there's a great resource called Commute with Confidence that combines a lot of best practices and regional guidance from transportation service providers to help people understand a little bit more about current travel conditions and requirements. So now I want to pivot and talk about the programs that are more employer facing. So for you as employers or property managers or developers, the rest of this is all about you. So, there are lots of free programs out there, lots of services and support. I talked a little bit just before about the things that people can use as individuals, but these tools are to help you actually build a more robust commuter program. So I first want to mention Smart Benefits, which is a free WMATA platform to arrange for pre-tax or subsidized transit van pool and transit related parking benefits that can be administered through the site for your employees to take advantage of. There's also a Maryland commuter tax credit, which I think a lot of people don't know about. So this allows businesses to claim 50% of the cost of providing commuter subsidized commuting benefits. And that's up to $100 per employee per month. So you can recoup some of those costs back if you do subsidize options. On top of that, there is an IRS commuter benefit limit. It's section 132F, if you want to look it up, that sets aside or determines the limits every year for your monthly pre-tax or subsidy or combination that you can allow your employees to take advantage of. And this year it's $270 per month for transit, van pool, and transit related parking. Plus there's FICA savings on top of that for you as employers. And there are a ton of resources that have been developed regionally and locally to support every aspect of a commuter program. So if you want to, reevaluate your telework program, which I'm sure is in top-notch shape right now, but if you want to take a look at, bringing in a carpool program or getting a van pool program going, or doing a parking cash out program, or getting a bike commuter program going, there are guides that can help you. So there's no reinventing the wheel here. Just a quick plug on why to prioritize commuter benefits. So this really can help your recruitment and retention strategy. A lot of people, by putting what you promote for commuter benefits out front can actually really set you apart from other employers and can help retain people if they're starting to struggle with their commute. Adding some stuff in there can help keep them at your job. There's also some financial savings on top of what I just mentioned that maybe aren't always realized. So, if you're paying for your employees' parking, or you're having to consider building parking or buying more parking, or your clients and customers are losing access to parking because more of your employees are driving to work, there are financial implications with all of those scenarios. So having a commuter benefits program that, helps people understand that there are choices that they could take advantage of can help with those things as well. And then, of course, we're contributing to making a positive regional impact in terms of air quality and congestion mitigation, which has been a little bit of a problem here. So just a couple things to consider. COVID-19 really has knocked everything sideways. But we do know that traffic in the area has been a struggle. We also know that it can be very expensive to hire new employees, and having a revolving door can be something that you could potentially avoid. And just, sort of doom scrolling the internet, we can even see that people are like crowdsourcing their life decisions on places like Reddit about should they leave their job because of their commute. So just, putting it out there that it's always on people's minds. And to consider something to consider more current and locally is that there have been a lot of surveys throughout the pandemic about people's travel choices and options. And what we're kind of seeing and getting the idea is that we may start to see, a return to vehicle use that is very similar to pre-pandemic levels. Transit use may be going down. Sharing rides, doing a carpool or vanpool situation may be going down. Great to see walking, biking, and teleworking up, but there are some balances there that having a commuter program in place could kind of support these different options. And also coming, right up this weekend through Memorial or through Labor Day weekend, the yellow and green line platform shutdowns are going to happen from between Fort Totten and Greenbelt. So I guess the point here is that there's maybe like a tiny bit of a groundswell happening, that having a commuter benefits program in place could be really, this could be just the right time. So here's how some ways that we think we can help through our RideSmart program. So at a very basic level, we can just review your commuter content. So if you have a website, a recruitment page or an intranet page or a benefits page, we can take a look at it and give you some ideas on, wording and things that you can promote, just the easy stuff that really, can still really set you apart and just provide some great resources to your employees. We can provide digital and printed content. So I don't have a massive printing budget, but we are creating a lot of materials that speak to all these different programs. We can share what we've made with you. We can work with you to customize it. We can just give you the information and you can have your own design team, create your own collateral. But those kinds of things are, great to share. We can also facilitate training and provide some consultation. So, if you want to start a program, you don't really have a defined program, or you want to add an element to it, we can help you with that. We can also do things like facilitate carpool matching events, or work on, an intro to bike commuting session and, ways to support bike commuters. We can do virtual employee benefits information. We've been doing some virtual brown bag lunch sessions to kind of remind employees that they have access to all of these programs. And once we go back to more in-person kinds of events, whenever that is, keep us in mind, invite us to your benefits fairs or your health and wellness events and, Earth Day and sustainability events, because our programs really do intersect with all of those areas. And we can help measure and celebrate your success. So we can support any kind of commuter survey that you want to run. We can do the analysis and do some reporting for you and give you some ideas. We could also do things like, if you just gave us a list of zip codes with no other information, we can map that out and we can take a look and say, we might find that maybe nobody really lives near a good transit option at the beginning of their commute. So maybe dumping a lot of effort into creating a transit option isn't that great, but starting a carpool or vanpool matching promotion and incentive is maybe the first step. So, those kinds of things can really inform the direction of your program. But those are the ways that we think that we can, help, but the way that we can actually help is really up to you. So there is no one size fits all solution for a commuter benefits program at a workplace. It can be, you just want to promote guaranteed ride home and the things that I talked about at the beginning. That's awesome. If you want to roll that into a really comprehensive program that includes, a transit benefit and a carpool preferential parking and a vanpool program and a capital bike share discounted membership, you want to do it all, we can help you with that too. So there's no right or wrong. It's what works for you, what you need for your organization, and what you need for your employees. So I'm doing okay on time, but I'll leave this very, very busy slide up here for a moment and just point out, hopefully you will get the full slide deck too, so you can go back and review everything. But these are the websites for some of the resources that I mentioned. Our website, of course, just a smattering of some of the things, some of the content that we have that we can share, and my information. So please feel free to reach out. I'm best reachable by email at this point, but would love to, start a conversation and, figure out where you would like to go.
Thank you, Stacey. That was terrific. And folks, I see that there's no questions in the Q&A right now, but certainly if something comes up in the next couple of weeks, feel free to either reach out to us or reach out to Stacey. Because, it just, when we met with Stacey and she was going through all the programs, sort of the realization that there is now effectively a clearinghouse for these programs. And you as business owners really aren't in the transportation business. You recognize that there's a need for your employees to get there, but the figuring out the logistics is a little bit outside what we would expect any business owner to fully understand. So if you do have employees that you think would benefit from these programs, please reach out, and we'll certainly work with Stacey and her team to provide that assistance. All right, well, thank you, Stacey. Folks, we're gonna move on to a couple of COVID related items and then some programming updates. And so next we have, I'll run through some of the COVID stuff, and then we'll go over to Cindy Zork. So everyone, I think at this point, is familiar with the American Rescue Plan. The federal government has allocated $19 billion of that for local non-entitlement cities. We are in the process of receiving briefings from the federal government about the allocation of funds, reporting what will be eligible, what is ineligible. We've not received any allocation of funding yet. That is pending. And certainly what we do know is it's going to be roughly 24-month expenditure period. And part of that, and what we're starting to do is evaluate the ways in which the city has allocated funding over this past 16 months to see what has been effective, what's been ineffective, and honing in on that with some degree of permanency over the next 2 years. We'll need to bring some additional capacity on to help administer these funds, because there will be certainly an expectation that all these funds can be audited, that we have to demonstrate that they're being used for very specific purposes. But more importantly, for me and for our economic development team and for you, the businesses, is some level of certainty in terms of what will be available over the next 2 years. We don't have any definite timelines, but I think it's reasonable to assume by end of June, we'll have greater clarity on what those funds will be used for, and that will be brought to the City Council this summer and organized in a way where they will be given the opportunity to make some choices about how they would like to have these funds administered at a local level. And then we are operating under the assumption that right around Labor Day, maybe slightly before or slightly after, some of these funds will be made available for business recovery. In speaking with a lot of businesses throughout this, we recognize that even with the funding that the city's provided, it's certainly helped, mitigate disaster, but many businesses are certainly not at a place where they're seeing the revenue that they were pre-pandemic. And these funds are not permanent, and there's a limit in how much funding each city will receive. And so just making everyone aware of the conversation. Certainly if you have experience receiving these funds, either from the city or the state or federal PPP, certainly share those stories, because I think it's helpful for us to understand what it means and how it has helped keep individual businesses afloat. So More to come on that once we're in a place where we have some certainty on the funding at the federal level. That will be a public discussion with the council sometime this summer, and certainly look forward to hearing from any of you who have experience receiving those funds. So next I'm going to hand it off to Cindy Zork. Cindy is our communications manager with the city. She's going to talk you through some of the vaccination opportunities for you or your employees. And welcome, Cindy.
Thank you, and thanks everyone. Good morning. We are here to give you just a quick overview of the vaccine opportunities in the area. The city's working hard to make it easy for all community members to get vaccinated, and we're hoping that you as a group here can help us spread the word a little bit about the vaccination opportunities locally amongst your staff. We are working with Luminous Health as our distribution partner. They are the medical team that's been staffing the testing site and now the vaccination site as well. Both of those sites are co-located at the First United Methodist Church on Bellcrest Road. The testing is continuing in the parking lot of the church. The good news is it's far down from where it was, even just a couple of months ago. And we have seen a pickup in vaccines, which are being done within the church itself. One thing that the team has noticed there is a disparity in the number, particularly of Latino families that are coming through the testing site, but not through the vaccination site. So we are trying to really spread the word to all members of the community about the opportunity for the vaccines, that they are free, that you can get them regardless of insurance coverage or immigration status. And now especially, the site has been able to get enough supply of the Pfizer vaccine to offer vaccines to children ages 12 through 18. They have opportunity today, actually, until 5 p.m. and next Tuesday, June 1st. The times vary, so we do recommend that making an appointment to make sure, particularly for minors to get the vaccine. You can make those appointments on our website, and that's here on the slide here, Hyattsville.org/COVID vaccine. I'll provide a flyer to Jim and team that they can distribute to all of you that has all this information that you can distribute to your employees. We know there's a couple of reasons for people not getting the vaccine. One is timing. It just can be difficult to set aside the time or find the time to get to a local vaccine site. Another is vaccine hesitancy, just concerns about the safety of the vaccine. And then the last is just lack of information. So we're hoping that you guys can be our evangelists here on a lot of those fronts. One, providing the time to employees, if that's something that you can do to make sure that they can get vaccinated. If it's not reasonable to get to this local site, there are many, many sites in Prince George's County offering vaccines, most of them at this point offering walk-ups so that you can go without an appointment. There's one at the Greenbelt Metro Station that's open 7 days a week. The hours vary, but we have them listed on our website at that COVID vaccine website. So there's a lot of opportunities to do it. As for the hesitancy, a lot of municipalities are looking at this, how to combat people's fears and concerns about the vaccine. And one of the number one ways to get around it is just hearing personal stories from trusted friends. So, if you can encourage your other team members who maybe have had the vaccine, or yourself, if you've been vaccinated, to share the story. And, we know that sometimes the side effects can knock you out for a day, but certainly that's better than the alternative of potentially being hospitalized or worse with COVID-19. It's very encouraging and exciting to see restaurants open, see businesses open, start to see things return to some semblance of normal. But the virus is still out there and people are still catching it. People are still getting hospitalized for it. So as things open up, those people who have not been vaccinated are much more vulnerable than they even were before. And then finally, just the lack of information. We've been trying a bunch of different ways to get out into the community, reaching out through students so that students can reach out to their parents, reaching out through you. And you may have heard that Prince George's County is also tackling this. They have a vaccine equity task force that's actually doing canvassing, going door to door. They have records of communities where there have been a low number of vaccinations versus the population. And several of those communities are surrounding the Hyattsville, the incorporated Hyattsville area. So some of the highly populated areas along Riggs Road and Adelphi Road. So I'm sure you probably have some employees from some of those communities, and anything that we can do to get the word out there about the availability of the vaccine, particularly now the availability of the vaccine to anyone ages 12 and up, and the safety of it would be much appreciated. So that's all that I have here. We'll make sure you guys get that information, get the flyer so that you can spread that information. And do feel free, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat or in the Q&A and I can answer them.
Thank you, Cindy. And again, folks, what we'll do is in a follow-up with the survey, we'll include a lot of this information, and the recording of this meeting will be available. We'll post it on the city's website, but we'll include the link to that within the email. Many of you are probably familiar with the city's relief funding. We do have that on the city's website. It does not reflect a new batch of funding for professional trades. And so recently the City Council authorized us to administer funding, to reallocate funding for working artists, but also create a new fund under professional trades, which included barbers, cosmetologists, and pet care. And these are employee programs. So they're not intended for the business operator, rather employees of that business. And the thought was these are folks who were economically impacted throughout this pandemic. Many of the funds that were available directly to businesses these folks were not eligible for. And so the professional trades is not yet reflected in the map we have on the city's website. But if you are interested in seeing where the funds have been distributed, we are keeping track of that. We do report that back for any funding that we are receiving or applying for reimbursement for. And many of the questions in the application, which is not that long, I think many of you have filled them out. We try to make them fairly consolidated, but it is important that anyone applying complete the application, because that information is used when we're audited, and we can demonstrate what that impact looks like. So next, and I think many of you have met our newest employee, Amy Boyd, through email, but Amy is our Community and Economic Development Coordinator. She heads up our economic development programming. She's going to introduce an exciting initiative that the city is going to be kicking off this summer, and then sharing with you some information on some revolving programs that the city has offered. And so I'll hand it over to Amy, and Amy is going to introduce you to the BRE strategy.
Hi, everyone. As Jim said, I'm Amy. I'm the newest member of the team. I'm sure a lot of you have been receiving my emails, and I'm really excited to have this first event for a business community and one day see you in person, but also hear from whatever questions and comments you have today. So I'm going to be talking about our exciting new initiative, the Business Retention and Expansion Strategy. So over the past decade, our residential community here in Hyattsville has been growing. So we've been able to benefit from expanding national, regional, and also local restaurants and retail. But there have been a variety of challenges associated with growing a new local economy. And the city recognizes that commerce is faced with threats and opportunities from both the digital economy as well as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we wanted to make sure that we're guiding the business community through these challenges, but also capturing the opportunities. That's why the city intends to develop a business retention and expansion strategy that has three main goals. The first is to develop a toolkit of policies and programming intended to retain our current small and locally owned businesses. The second, to create a strategy for servicing businesses needing to expand their facilities and/or marketplaces. And three, to create opportunities for business recovery through short and long-term resiliency. So we really want to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses that are already here, making sure that they have the resources that they need to thrive, but also when the time comes that they can grow and remain a part of our business community. So the city council selected a partnership of consultants and access and biometrics. The team is made up of Bobby Boone, he's the founder and principal of Access, and Heather Arnold, who is a founder and CEO of Biometrics, and I'll let them speak about their project in a little more depth.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Amy. And we're so excited to join you today. We know how much time and effort it takes to step away from your business and actually join meetings like this, and really appreciate that. And you'll be seeing a lot of us over the course of the next couple of or several months. We are kicking off the project with a round of engagement. And so that will be conducted both in person and digitally, as whatever works best for you all. Within the project, as mentioned, the goal is really just to understand where you are now, understand the opportunities that there are to continue your growth, and pivoting as you are emerging through COVID. As we've heard from many, different hospitality-based businesses, securing employees right now is of concern. We want to understand, things that are just, rooted in the realities of what is day to day, and then really help the city, craft a strategy to best support you. And so with that, I'll kick it over to Heather just to say hello. She's the yin to my yang. And so hopefully you all enjoy working with us, and we definitely look forward to the next steps with you all.
I just wanted to chime in and say, that Bobby and I, we love working as a team, and we consider you part of our team as well. And we have expertise in, the best strategies to retain businesses and expand them. But you guys understand Hyattsville better than we ever will. And you understand your own businesses better than we ever will. And we hope you'll see us as a sounding board and a real partner in your thinking about the future. And thanks.
All right. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. You'll be seeing a lot more of Bobby and Heather in the future. So next I'm going to talk about our commercial facade grant program, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. It's our most visible grant program that was around also before the pandemic. So we're getting ready to open that up again. It is available to property owners in our 3 targeted investment areas for their buildings facades. That's the Prince George's Plaza area, the West Hyattsville Metro, and the Gateway Arts area. And the goal of the program is to use curb appeal to attract customers to not only specific businesses, but our community as a whole. The grant program is a dollar for dollar match of $5,000 to $50,000. So whatever private equity the business owner is able to put in, then they would be eligible for that amount of funding from the city. And the use of the grant program is intended for exterior only. So things like paintings, shutters, gutters, windows, sliding glass doors, masonry finishes, lightings, and signage, but not for anything interior, roofs, or structural. If you want to participate, I would look at our website. The link is right up there. And I would start with the review of the facade design guide that displays a spectrum of what the program can be used for and gives a scope of what could be possible for your business. It has a range of every type of design element, their features, and an approximate price. So what's possible for signs? Can it be an umbrella sign, a painted sign, lettering, things like that, and gives you a ballpark about how much it costs so that you can start to conceptualize what could be possible for you, because it is a matched program. And the applications will be available June 1st through July 29th. And we hope that you start now looking at contractors and possibilities and plans, because there is quite a bit of detail and thought that needs to go into this program. And next, I'll hand it back over to my team to talk about our economic development report.
Thank you, Amy. So I think everyone's aware the city publishes a semi-annual economic development report. So we tend to highlight topics that are relevant. Last year, obviously, heavily related to COVID. One of the issues that we were scheduled to produce was highlighting historic preservation, and obviously that was certainly superseded by more time-sensitive issues. But fortunately, by delaying it, we were able to introduce Megan Bacco, who is the new executive director of the Anacostia Trails Heritage Area here in Hyattsville. In case anyone was not familiar with that, they are located in the Pyramid Atlantic Arts Center building. Their front door is their visitor center, and Meg has a background in historic preservation in Maryland, and certainly very fortunate to have her here. So we did take liberty in giving her a nice spread within the economic development report. And so I think she is here with us. I just wanted to give another shout out to Meg, who is going to be a terrific resource. Business owners, if you've not engaged with AFA, please do. We get a lot of folks here visiting for the day. They're curious what's happening in Hyattsville. And certainly if Meg knows you're engaged, she's going to point them in your direction, because you guys, a lot of you are within walking distance to her visitor center. So please stop by, introduce yourself. She's terrific. And if you want to learn more about her, read our Spring Economic Development Report, which is on the city's website. We do direct print and sending them out and to households. And the last page of that is always a summary of where we're at on some of our programming, commercial facade, and our corridor investment program, which was refunded again by our city council. More to come on that, but we'll probably release that application sometime towards the back end of June. And that's effectively a micro grant program. So if you're interested in things like planters or some business related program expansion, those funds will be available, and certainly would encourage you to take a look and see if we might be able to help assist funding one of a program to help your business. Moving on, I'm going to introduce our city planner, Kate Powers. Kate is going to highlight a couple of developments here in the city. It's not everything, but certainly it's projects along the commercial corridors, which directly benefit the business community. So she wanted to give you a little bit of an update, and obviously COVID has slowed some of these, but certainly we anticipate a lot of these projects picking up steam this year and over the next year or two, looking to have more residents here in the city that will eat and shop local. And so, Kate, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jim. So first item we have for our development update is the Canvas Apartments. Some of you may remember originally they were going to be called the Armory Apartments, obviously because they are right next to the historic Armory. This project is going to be about 284 multifamily units with some commercial space on the ground floor. And so that will be right across the street from Busboys and Green Owl, currently where there are those sort of vacant, colorful buildings. So Urban Investment Partners is currently preparing to submit its building permits for the construction of the Canvas project. And so the latest update for this is that a portion of the project will be constructed on land that is owned and will continue to be owned by the city. If anyone is familiar with the city lot 5, the Jefferson Street parking lot. And so the updated recording of plat will enable UIP to relocate several of the parking spaces that they intend to construct closer to the entrance of the building. And so on April 5th, the mayor executed a record of plat for these parcels owned by the city, enabling development of those parcels. So this project has sort of been in the works for a long time. So it seems like we're inching closer as they begin to submit their building permits. Amy, could you please go to the next slide? The next project is Riverfront at West Hyattsville. And so construction has begun. Anyone who has passed by knows that construction has begun of the 183 townhouses that are proposed for the area. And so the expected delivery of these townhouses is early 2022. And currently these townhouses are being constructed and sold by Stanley Martin. In addition to the townhouses, this site will also host a Kaiser Permanente medical office building, which was approved by the Prince George's County Planning Board last year, almost exactly a year ago. And the developer anticipates that the Kaiser building will be complete by June 2023 with an August 2023 opening. Next slide, please, Amy. So the next development is the Landy development. Now this is off Bellcrest Road. It is north of the mall at Prince George's. And it is south of Northwestern High School. And so this project is comprised of 331 townhouses. The county is currently reviewing the detailed site plan for phase 2 of the Landy property. They did divide the property with the eastern part as phase 1 and the western part as phase 2. On May 17th, the city council voted in support of the phase 2 site plan with conditions. And phase 2 will connect to and carry over the architecture from phase 1. And that is sort of our current development updates for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And folks, as I mentioned, if you're interested on any other projects in the city, there's lots of them. So we wanted to keep it to the most relevant, but encourage you to please visit our development page. We have a map laying out all the various developments happening in the city. Most of them are residential. And as I think I've shared with this group in previously, there's a lot of reasons why that's happening, but certainly the lack of housing within the Washington metropolitan area is driving a lot of these land uses. Most are happening in and around Metro or the Route 1 corridor, all of which are areas that the city and the community have prioritized for development. So by and large, they're happening in areas that we've asked them to invest, the private sector to invest in developing land that historically has been underutilized. But if you have any questions about timing, either shoot us an email or take a look at the website. We try to update that pretty regularly, or as you know, each of those projects are granted approval and sort of as we receive updates. Moving on, we're going to hop into our business innovation panel. We've had a couple of these through the virtuals that we've hosted, and we try to introduce topics that we think are going to be relatable to various business owners. And certainly, you know, a year into this pandemic, businesses have learned to adapt to health restrictions or market changes. And so the panelists we have today have been able to transform their businesses with some creative solutions to meet today's needs. And certainly we think that it'll be advantageous for years to come after COVID. So we have with us today Mike Franklin, who's owner of Franklin's General Store in Hyattsville. And we have Will Fung of Fat Choi Hotspot in Washington, D.C. And we wanted to have these folks here because, the restaurant industry has really taken a beating over this past year, and some have started to recover. But, sharing some of those lessons learned we thought was very important to share with the audience. And so wanted to thank both Mike and Will for being here today. And we're going to lead you off with some questions, and hoping you might be able to share your experience and talk us through sort of at a micro level some of the decisions around the various decisions around sort of taking shape and how you're operating your business. So thank you. Will, we've not had a chance to talk, so I wanted to lead you off with a question here. If you could maybe share with us how you were able to transform what is really an experience-oriented meal into something that's workable under the health restrictions that were put in place.
Yeah, thanks for having me. To work within the health restrictions, obviously I didn't do indoor dining or anything, not even at the restaurant. So all the kits or hot pot kits are made for 2 to 3 people to be shared at home with your family. So, all the prep was done in the restaurant space itself, and then it's either delivery or pickup. So I either bring it out to people's cars or deliver it to their homes themselves. So it was a 1-person operation, everything from building out an online ordering platform to prepping the food, dishwashing, whatever it was. It was just, I was fortunate enough to be able to work by myself to keep myself safe. And in turn, I would go to people's houses and drop it at people's doors and shoot them a text. Technology helps a lot, being able to use, all sorts of ways to communicate with customers and stuff like that. That way people can enjoy a meal safe in their own homes and not have to go out anywhere. And I think that was a big market during peak COVID times, to be able to provide experiences that people might replicate. Like it feels like the most feedback is like, it feels like they're out even though they're at home, because it was something totally different that they weren't doing before.
That's great. Thank you. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about how you transitioned in introducing some of the meal kits, and if there's any advantages that you found offering meal kits as opposed to traditional takeout?
Well, just like Will said, all of it, I agree with everything he said, and we followed a similar path. The meal kits we found, we did it 2 ways. One, like carry out the same day meal kits, 4 for $40 for meatloaf, the family meals, that type of thing, pizza family meals, etc. And meal kits for next day delivery. What we tried to do is interface with all the customers the way they wanted. And we found that we were a little late in the game for the next day delivery. That was the era when a couple months in, when people had shortages at grocery stores and were afraid of going out at all. We tried to take advantage of what their needs were by offering to bring it to them for next day. And the family meals were similar to carry out, but they were a cheaper option. Instead of having everyone order individual meals, which added up to whatever it was, $60, you could feed a family of 4 for $40. And it was more like cooking. You don't usually try to track down all the members of your family to get individual orders. Is a lot easier for somebody to just, tonight we're doing meatloaf, the next night we're doing pizza, and making it easy for people to want to order and pick it up. That was a tremendous hit. And was part of the reason we made it through the pandemic. It has operational implications, which is why we phased it out as we got more capacity for in dining and out dining, but it's now in our toolkit. I think the basic thing is we now have learned a tremendous amount of things that we can dust off or use differently and adapt to whatever comes in the future, because we have a much broader way of reaching out to people than we used to.
That's awesome, Mike. If could you maybe expand on that a little bit? What do you see as, I don't want to call it lessons learned, but incorporating some of those permanent changes because of a shift in customer behavior?
Yeah. Well, as a precursor, what we learned immediately was we had weaknesses we never realized, because everybody operates, the human nature to go the way you've always gone. What we realized as soon as the pandemic hit is we didn't communicate with our customers very well. So our biggest transformation was in our social media and reaching out and communicating to customers in a whole nother way than we used to do, and and redoing our website with Shopify to reach out to them in that way, which we never did before. So, lessons learned. We will always communicate with our customers more, and it'll make it a lot easier for us to adapt to anything that does come our way. None of us know whether some of the much broader appeal of outdoor dining and the higher levels of carry out will stay. But at least now we have them, as we know how to do those things, and we also know how to communicate with our customers so that whatever adaptations we want to keep and whatever new ones we have to do, because darn it, the patterns aren't quite going back to the way they were. We now have hopefully the capacity to continue to adapt, and the mentality that you can't just sit on your laurels and be static, but you have to be constantly adapting. It's a different way of thinking.
That's helpful. Will, I'll ask Will and then I'll ask Mike the same question. Has the pandemic forced you to assess kind of your supply chain and more from a continuity standpoint of knowing what's available, and has that changed? Has your menu had to reflect what's available through supply chain?
To a small extent. I think early on, in the middle of last year, supply chains were a little tougher. They've kind of come around since then. Like last winter was okay. So the advantage I had in having like a smaller operation was that I was able to take pre-orders. So I would take all the orders for the week on a Monday afternoon, and by Monday night, everything sells out for the week. I know exactly what I needed. So I had, plenty of time to be able to get what I needed, even if the supply chain had hiccups along the way. I still gave myself ample time. So that was kind of built in the way I set up the operations. It's built in to have a little leeway in case there were supply chain hiccups. But just constantly being in contact with your vendors, and also along with what Mike said, be in communications with your customers. If something does happen, provide an alternative that the customers are actually excited about. Sometimes these things happen, but if you're in open communications with your guests, these kind of like hiccups can actually be a positive, because you're actively being thoughtful about how to adjust to it. And most customers, I would say, like, are very understanding of like the adjustments, even as like a minor adjustment in the menu doesn't compare to the adjustments we've all had to make in our lives. So they're like, okay, cool, how this works. So I kind of built it in with like time to withstand hiccups in supply chain.
Mike, Any supply chain issues for you?
Again, same as Will. I'll never forget the 2 weeks where we couldn't get salmon because our supplier was selling every piece they had to Wegmans. They stole our salmon. And we had to adapt to that, and chicken wings and what have you. Those and produce. That has kind of ebbed, but the pricing issues have remained. Currently now we are, crab is skyrocketed, for example. And what we haven't done is we've absorbed the cost, which we will have to adjust to, but we should be charging much more for any crab product than we do right now, for example. And we're currently talking with each other about how we are more adaptive, and whether our customers will understand that, now the crab cakes are $35, but as soon as we can bring them back down to 29, we will. So we still have some decisions to make, as maybe the best way to put it.
Has the pre-order concept allowed either of you to have more predictability in because ultimately you're trying to avoid having to throw out food, right? So has it helped provide greater predictability in what you need to order?
In my case, definitely just knowing exactly what I needed on a Monday for the rest of the week. By Sunday night, the end of the week, my fridges are pretty much bare. So I don't have a whole lot of rolling inventory, but I know that's like a huge privilege to have. And then that doesn't really happen on like a normal size, full scale restaurant. In my case, it works out. But I understand that that's very hard to replicate on a larger setting as well. So, I took advantage of it while I can. But I also understand that's a very unique situation.
Yeah, what you said for us, that first of all, our pre-order business part of it, order for the next day delivery, was always a relatively small piece compared to same day carryout. And carryout was, people have patterns. It's relatively predictable. The phone would start ringing off the hook at 5 in the afternoon, and by 7 o'clock it was done. Whereas people coming to the restaurant, it's much more spread out. We at least understand the operational challenges of that now, because the behavior, not the items that they ordered, but the behavior is so predictable.
That's helpful here. So I only have two more questions. One of it is people related, just in terms of Mike, I know for you, getting reliable employees is always something that is challenging. You want to make sure you hold on to them. What does the next, 3 months look like for you, as you're to some degree permitted to add capacity to the restaurant?
Well, I feel like we're starting with an advantage because we used our employees for delivery, for example. We were able to, instead of going to Uber Eats and that type of option.
Yeah.
So we were able to retain a fair number of employees. So coming out of it, it makes the transition easier. Having said that, we're still we're challenged with hiring new front of the house employees and back of the house employees. The next 3 months, there's going to be some big bumpy service here, because we're madly trying to hire and train people. We'll figure it out, but we're going through what every restaurant, full-size restaurant in the country is going through in terms of hiring people.
Yeah, and you're competing against a whole lot of people who are looking for similar skills.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think currently I'm helping out in a restaurant group in DC, and I think everyone's kind of in the hiring phase. We see less candidates, but also the candidates who do want to work in the restaurant field. Before, you were getting people who had to work in restaurants, but now people who are applying, especially in the kitchen, they want to make hospitality in restaurants their profession. So it's a shift in what people are looking for and why people are applying for the jobs. But either way, I think I think restaurants have to kind of adapt, like Mike said earlier, like you have to stay in front and adapt and think of new, I almost think of this as almost as a market correction in how labor structures work within a restaurant itself, and whether or not it was sustainable before, and coming out like what parts of service in a restaurant can be, where do you put your labor dollars basically, and how to adjust to it. And I think there's going to be a big correction in who does what and how much gets divvied up in terms of kitchen and front of house staff.
That's great. Thank you, Will. Last question. And try to be as specific as you can on this, but I guess what advice can you offer to other small businesses looking to implement, scalable transformations for their businesses? And I don't want to lead too much, but Mike, you mentioned that communications piece, which thing, just call it less reliant on previously, and now it's a major point of emphasis.
I wish we had been doing that from the beginning. I guess is the thing I'd say is if you're starting, if you are making sure your social media and interconnectedness to your customers from the very beginning is on a high level. We haven't been doing emails as much, but even that is making sure you have everybody's information so that you can continue to communicate with anybody who walks in your door is biggest lesson learned, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of adapting, I think takeout and in-home kits are kind of here to stay, maybe on a lesser impact level. But I think it's important for businesses. A lot of times, all the restaurants deal with 3-4 delivery places. Everyone's just trying to gather as much revenue as possible. And I think a lot of times restaurants think that the transaction ends when you hand off a bag of food to delivery person or whatever. But you have to think that transaction really ends when the customers finish with their meal. So you have to keep engaging with the guests. So like I set up a little hotline where people can text me if they have questions about the kits and stuff like that. That engagement is very helpful. And also, it provides a sort of service that you would get in a restaurant, except you're trying to replicate that in a takeout and in-home kit level. So those are kind of the things that stop thinking of the transaction being ending when you hand off the food to someone, to a delivery driver, but it actually ends when the customers finish with their meal. And having that mindset really helped me along the way and helped me, engage with the guests a lot more.
Yeah, on that level, the other thing I'd say for somebody starting out is you may not have thought because you think a lot of your business is going to be delivery or carry out, that you wanted an alcohol license. But if it's doable, elevating the elevation of to go to include alcohol sets you apart from many of the other options. And if in your application that's a thing you can do, but decided that it wasn't a high priority, you should probably make it a high priority.
That's great advice, Mike. Well, so and thank you both for sharing some of your thoughts. And I know we certainly try to make topics relatable, and everyone walks away with some lessons here. And thank you both for sharing your experience here. It's we're wrapping up now, but we're going to certainly share this meeting, an email to all of the city's 500 licensed businesses, and because we want them to benefit from this type of advice that certainly I think is more valuable coming from a business owner than directly from the city. And so, just want to also thank Stacey for her time with us this morning in listing some of the transportation related programs for employees and employers. We will be sending out a survey. Please respond, because it'll help shape some of the programming that we're introducing through the roundtables in the fall, and again next winter. And in terms of the business BRE strategy, we've been very sort of open to ideas about what shape the BRE strategy will take. There may be a heavier recovery element in that than simply retention and expansion, but it will be informed by businesses and understanding of what they need, what we as a government need to create that environment for success. We're not necessarily in the business of creating an individual success for an individual business. We're trying to create an environment that businesses can thrive. And certainly hearing that feedback from you all is going to be incredibly helpful. And having Bobby and Heather here on board, we looked at a lot of different firms. I assure you, no other firm is better suited to deliver this for Hyattsville than the folks we have. And so just want to thank Heather and Bobby for introducing themselves today. Folks, you're going to be hearing from them in the not too distant future, and looking forward to that engagement with our team. So with that, just we're going to close out. Thank you everyone for your participation. If you have any additional questions, our information is here on the slide. And certainly if you have any questions about anything that we discussed, we'll follow up with an email for everyone. And certainly all this information is available on our website. The city is going to be, and Cindy's work, I'll plug your effort here. We're going to be updating our website sometime towards fall of this year. It will be rearranged a little bit, and it will be more focused and organized based on service delivery rather than departments. And that should help with engagement and our users to be able to find what it is they're looking for. So you may notice those changes start to happen over the next couple of months, and it is intended, as Mike alluded to, having it change to address the fact that our customers are engaging in different ways, and we want to be able to change some of what we do in order to meet the needs of those customers. But so with that, I'll close out our spring roundtable. Thank you everyone for taking a little bit of time with us this morning, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Have a good day.